In this video, we're going to discuss whether or not a $500 eBay Turbo Kit is worth it. So behind me here is our 1999 Miata. It's our project drift car that my students and I have been building into a drift car. We started doing it last year, and this year we're getting a little more serious with it, doing some more modifications. So one of the things we found we needed is a little more power. We're not talking big, huge power. We're talking just about 50 more horsepower to make this thing run just a little bit better. So, you know, obviously going through different methods we can do, we decided on a turbocharger. I've been around the racing world for a while. I've been racing for about 15 years, drag racing. And so I know about making power. I have a Mustang that I built and race. So I decided we'll give the $500 eBay Turbo Kit a chance, see what happens. In the past, when I was younger, I bought a couple of eBay turbos thinking I'm going to build a turbo kit for my Mustang, and nothing ever happened from it because I realized back then when I was 18, I didn't know how to weld, I didn't know how to fabricate, I didn't know any of that stuff. I barely knew how to work on a car at that time. I bought the stuff, it sat around, I've seen the stuff before. I ended up eventually selling it back or returning it because I realized I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So fast forward to now, seen a lot of these eBay turbo kits, figured might as well, 500 bucks, might as well give it a chance, see what it is. So I have a kit here, and if you follow our Instagram, I posted a picture of the box, and I said I was going to do an unboxing video. I already kind of unboxed it already. I am very little patience when I get something new. I want to open it up and check it out. I waited all Thanksgiving break to bring it back to school here, and then the kids were like, oh, come on, let's open it up, and I gave in, and we opened it up. We already checked it out. But I'm going to bring parts up here. We're going to go through the different parts and check them out and see what they are and how good they are. And I'll tell you my experience, you know, through my experiences, what is good, what is bad. And then we'll test fit the manifold and turbo on here and see if it even fits. Now, these turbo kits you buy on eBay, they say it's a kit. It has the necessities, the bare necessities to get it running, but it's missing a lot of stuff. It's missing really the tuning side, which is really the greater side of this. You know, the eBay turbos have come a long way. They're pretty decent, but the tuning side is where it's going to come into. We need, if we add more air in from the turbocharger, we need to add more fuel, and we need to regulate the spark for it. We need to retard or pull the spark back so we're not causing detonation and blowing up our motor. So if on that side you're going to need bigger fuel injectors, which this kit does not come with, you need some kind of engine tuning tool, which this kit doesn't come with. Those are the costlier side of things, you know. As far as engine tuning goes, there's really two good options out there. There's a Mega Squirt and there's the Flying Miata FM221 computer. Both those are standalone engine management systems that take place in your stock computer. They're fully programmable. You can do tons of stuff with them, tons of control. Flip side, they're about $900 for the kit plus a wideband and some other stuff. You know, so you're looking about $1,000, $1,100 once you're all said and done. But it's cheaper than blowing stuff up all the time. There are other ways you can do it through manipulating the timing and the fuel pressures and stuff, but still I don't think it's worth manipulating that stuff to blow a motor up. Then what you're going to need is you need fuel injectors. We've gone with low force 640cc injectors. They sell a complete kit for a Miata that has the newer style injectors, the adapters, spacers, all that stuff, which we'll feature in another video here. Then we have the turbo kit itself. So let's take a look at the turbo kit and dive into it. So let's go ahead, let's open up this kit and see what we got here. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna open up the turbo manifold. So we get a gasket for the turbo itself, a aluminum crush gasket. We have the studs and washers and stuff for the flange. Then we have our actual manifold itself. It's a cast iron manifold. A lot of OEMs use cast iron. It's a really durable material. I think this will be good overall. There are some cheaper eBay manifolds out there that are the tubular. You know, you might see the ram horn. They're all fancy looking. The problem with those, a lot of them are made of really thin wall stainless steel material, which is prone to cracking over time, especially the weight of a turbocharger hanging off of them. So be careful. Now, one thing I really dislike about this manifold is if we look here, there's a hole here where you'd hook up a heat shield, but that hole actually goes all the way through. You can see my finger through there. Okay, that's going to cause an exhaust leak. It'll be kind of hard to cap off. Probably the best bet would be to weld that off and not run a heat shield on this. Other than that, on the back side here, it's got slash cuts on it. It's meant for expansion. Decent manifold. It bolts up to the head just fine. It has a T3 flange, and it has a standard 35, 38 millimeter wastegate flange on the bottom. As far as how the wastegate's going to be, this might be a little weird being on the underside there, but we'll take a look and see. This does not come with a manifold gasket though. One thing I found through racing and working with my buddy of mine, Bob Kerrigan, I worked with him for a while and raced with him. Copper RTV for the gasket. That's what I use on everything now. Don't put a gasket, use the copper RTV. I've never had a seal blow out from that. And most of the time I gotta use a pry bar and pry the manifold or the headers or something off the car because that seal is on there so good. Next thing we'll take a look at is probably the turbo. That's what everyone wants to see. So we'll go ahead and pull it out of the box here. I mean, it looks like your average T3 eBay turbo. We have impeller. If there's a shaft play, there's like the very minimalist amount of shaft play, which is not bad. It's got your oil in and out. It's got a 5-bolt flange in the back. It has the hole for wastegate, so you can add a wastegate housing on here. We're doing a flat housing like what we're going to do, and then have an external wastegate. You can loosen the bolts up. You can clock your turbine, your compressor housings. Overall, I mean, it seems like a half decent piece. For $100. This retails for about $100 out, $150 outside the eBay Turbo Kit. It looks like it's worth it. If it doesn't blow up, then it's good. Definitely a lot nicer and better than the old eBay turbos that I had way long ago. Here we have, looks like the wastegate. So the wastegate's job is control the amount of boost that the turbocharger makes by bleeding off exhaust pressure. So here's our wastegate. It's obviously a knockoff copy of someone's wastegate. So there's a plunger in here. As boost pushes in the bottom, there's a diaphragm inside here on the silver part. It pushes up that diaphragm, the valve opens, bleeds boost pressure off. It's overall, it's a pretty durable unit. The one thing I do not like about this though, if we look at the holes here, they're drilled through, but then there's these little tiny holes they drilled in afterwards. Definitely not a quality piece there. There's some stuff on the top here. Overall, so-so. For $100, it's what you pay for. You get some bolts, some fittings. You get your valve seat, gasket, and you get 2 gaskets and 2 wastegate flanges, so you can make your own stuff if you need to. With this kit, you really only need one of those flanges, so you can make your setup from there. Overall, I mean, I'm not super impressed. I'm not totally let down. For the price, you get what you pay for. The biggest thing of these things, I haven't opened it up yet to see what the inside looks like, but I'm assuming it'll be half decent. Next up, we got the oil line kits. So there's your oil line here, your feed for your turbo. It includes a nice, it looks like a -4, -3 AN fitting. And actually inside there, it'll probably be really hard to pick up on the video, but there's actually the pinhole that goes through there. If you look on the back side, there's that little tiny pinhole. That's to regulate the flow of oil to the turbo, so that's actually good that it comes with that. The turbo itself actually came with a gasket, and it actually comes with a fitting that has the turbo flow on it, the oil flow. It also includes our oil return line kit, which is not half bad, I don't think. I mean, the AN line here feels kind of cheap and chintzy, like cheap Chinese AN things do. The fittings feel about the same, not as quality as like an Earl's or something else kind of fitting, but I guess it'll do. The one nice thing that I think they include here is they include a weld-on bung for your oil pan. So the Miata's got an aluminum pan, you got an aluminum bung. All you gotta do is find someone that can aluminum weld, or if you can aluminum weld, then weld that on and you're good to go. Next up here we have the bypass valve or blow-off valve. It's your average, blow-off valve. Looks okay. It feels a little bit on the lighter side, but it's not dealing with heat like wastegate is, so it's not bad. It's got the little horn on it. It comes with an adapter, so you can put this on. Comes with some silicone hose and clamps and stuff like that. So, overall not a bad deal. I mean, without installing it and actually checking it out, it's not going to tell me a ton, but definitely looks a little bit better quality maybe than the wastegate. all reality though, with the wastegate is where I'd really want to maybe spend a little more money. I'd probably want to go get an actual name brand wastegate for this thing rather than using that wastegate they include in the kit, just for the fact that that controls the boost level. If that thing fails and stays closed, you're blowing the motor up. Okay, even with the fail-safe systems that you might have on using your aftermarket ECUs, it might not be enough to save the motor. So spending maybe $200 for a Turbo Smart or Tile or something like that, probably worth the money rather than blowing up an engine. Next we got the tube for the blow-off valve. It's got the flange on here. It's just a short section of intercooler piping that goes into. In here is a boost controller. It's a very simple, old school manual boost controller. Basically, it's just controlling how much goes in and air goes in and out. They've been around for forever. You can pretty much make these yourself if you know how to piece some stuff together from the hardware store, but not something I'd use on here. I'd use a wastegate and adjust the springs, or use the boost programming from the aftermarket ECUs with a solenoid to actually regulate the boost. We get a turbo boost gauge, nothing super fancy. The font and stuff on it looks similar to like the newer Ford ST model RS cars, but I haven't opened it up all the way yet. It's just a cheap gauge. Next we'll get to the intercooler piping. So the intercooler piping here is not what I'd call incredible, but it's not the worst. I mean, it's piping. It seems like a little bit lighter than a typical aluminum intercooler pipe would be, which is probably it's a cheaper aluminum. The one nice thing though, they are all bead rolled on the ends here, so that's good. That keeps the couplers from flying off. You get a bunch of different ones. You got a couple 90s, you got a couple 45s, you got a couple straight sections. So it's enough to build a basic intercooler kit out of. What you might do is you might have to chop and cut some of these, and then I would suggest either bead rolling the end again, or you can use a welder and weld a beader on the end to make it a little bit thicker so the coupler doesn't blow off. From there it gets us to our silicone connectors. Surprisingly, these silicone connectors are half decent. These are actually a multi-layer connector. So if we look on here, you see there's all these nylon or cloth fibers here. There's actually reinforced, it's multiple layers of silicone, there's multiple layers of reinforcement. This hose will actually last pretty decently. It'll withhold boost. What happens is if you get some of those cheaper, just standard blue connectors or black connectors, and what happens is under boost, because they're not reinforced, they swell up and then they go down. They swell up and they go down, and it actually causes some issues with the turbo system. They're thinner and they can actually blow those out. These are a little bit better. They comes with a bunch of straight, 90s. Some other ones here. So overall they're good. It also comes with a set of these T-bolt clamps for the intercooler hoses. T-bolt clamps are a lot nicer than the old worm drive clamps. These actually they get the name T-bolt because there's a bolt, looks like a T here. And this goes on and tightens up around there. These feel thinner. I have these in my Mustang that hold back 20 plus pounds of boost. These feel a lot chintzier, cheaper than those, but I'm sure for a low pressure situation these would do just fine. But you get a whole kit of those. And then the last item here we have is the intercooler. So here's our intercooler. It's nothing fancy. Seems a little cheaper, chintzier than I expected. It's a lot lighter than some of the other intercoolers. So there might be thickness of tubing and stuff like that. Get a close-up look here at the fins. Here's our inside. So overall, I mean, not bad, not the worst. So with that being said, my thoughts on Turbo Kit, not bad for 500 bucks. Maybe want to upgrade the wastegate, but most of the stuff should work decently enough. If I was making big boost, big power, definitely don't want this stuff. But for a low boost situation, 7 to 8 pounds, it should be good. It should be good. Now let's go ahead and see if any of this stuff will fit. Now I'm going to go ahead and just mock up the manifold and the turbo real quick, just to see if this even fits on here. So I'm just going to put 2 of the studs on. I'm going to grab the turbo. We'll put 1 nut on, and that'll be enough to hold this all together. Okay, so now we have this on. We can go ahead and try to fit this on here. Oh man, that's not good. All right, so the verdict is it don't fit the way it is. If you look down here, the turbo itself, the compressor housing, is hitting against the frame rail, actually a pretty big spot. Now this car is a tube front end. I'm not really adverse to cutting that out and boxing it in. Seems like a lot of extra work though for a cheap turbo kit. Also where the turbo places the outlet, obviously we can clock it to where we need to, but it's at a bad location to come out. Also, if we look here where the downpipe comes out, there's not a lot of room between here and the exhaust. We're going to run actually a through the hood downpipe, or in this case maybe a up pipe, you'd call it. But even then, if you're trying to run an exhaust, it's a really tight radius down in there to run an exhaust out the back, and you're on your own for customizing it. So this tube, if you want to come up, it's going to hit your valving for your brakes, and potential a lot of overheat in this area. We can see the manifold's not sitting there. There's a decent gap, and I can get my finger in between there. So definitely does not fit. Probably not a great option for this car. Now with that being said, and this thing not fitting right, I think I'm just going to return this thing. Probably try and find a nicer kit, a little bit more expensive obviously, but we'll go from there. Hopefully this helps you create an informed decision on whether or not you should buy a $500 eBay turbo kit. This won't even fit regardless, so I mean it's not worth it at all. Some cars, they might fit. If they fit, great. If not, that sucks. Remember the couple things with these eBay turbo kits, they're not complete, so you have to usually get some extra parts for it. Like this, you have to make a full exhaust for this car, or at least the downpipe. You need fuel injectors, a computer, colder range spark plugs, other little various stuff that you might forget. Air filter for the front here if you can run air filter. A lot of extra little stuff you need to run. Now this car is not going to run a heater. It has no AC, so there's a lot of extra parts missing. We're actually going to run a rear mount radiator on this car, so we have a lot of room up front here. But if you have a car with a full front end and stuff like that, I mean it gets loaded up quickly, so it might not be the best idea. You also need to know how to do some fabrication, because you have to do some kind of fabrication work for this. So if you don't know how to do that, plan on paying someone else money. And at that point, you might as well sink the money you're going to pay someone else to do the fabrication and just buy a good kit to begin with. Hopefully this helped. If it did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, smash your thumbs down twice. Show me how much you hate it, and have a good one.